Hi guys, welcome back to another video. So we have something unexpected, but something a little unexpected because I got this. I sold a few of my builds I wasn't really getting on with or wanted to trade. So afford to get this off of a chap who had it and was getting out of the sport. So I purchased it and it wasn't quite what I was expecting. Me and the owner have been back and forth and we sort of worked out some bits and pieces anyway. So anyway, this actually happens to be boneyard when it was actually sold to me as a fully working pistol. Again, me and the seller have worked something out between us. So I'm now going to be documenting fixing this up. So it is, as you already guessed, another Glock. This happens to be a Marui G17, and it is a standard Marui lower fitted with a Garda upper, and this happens to be a steel Garda upper. Right guys, so here we've got our Glock 17, and again this is as I like to have them, on a steel Garda upper. It's the nicer finish Garda upper, which is the later type. The early type were that sort of really chalky finish. This is a really nice finish on this one, which is actually a shame because I was going to do something different with this, but I think I'm going to leave it as is now because I quite like that look. Now, the reason why this is boneyard is for two reasons. Well, I think just one, but it's possibly something else, but we're going to investigate today and see what we've got. So at the moment, we've got a completely dead trigger that does absolutely nothing. Even if I cock the slide, we've got absolutely nothing. Now it's got a different trigger fitted, which you can see there. I believe this is like an AAP style trigger. Either way, it's got to go. It's hideous. I hate it. So we're going to get rid of that and go for a standard stock one. But that should be doing something, but it's not. So on closer investigation, the trigger bar spring is missing. Now, like I said, I've been back and forth to the seller of this and initially said to him, look, it's missing, because it did actually fire one shot and then that was it. So I did say it's missing. We went back and forth and it turned out he did do a video of it shooting before he posted it to me. So it was definitely working before I got it. But this is a stock TM lower. It has got an aftermarket stainless steel hammer set in here, which I'm not sure on the brand. If you know in the comments or you recognise it, do hit me up in the comments and let me know. But yeah, the trigger bar spring is missing, which is what would normally hold the trigger bar up in its upper position for you to be able to pull the trigger and let the hammer fall, which obviously at the moment it's just not doing. So there we go. So we're going to lock that back for now. So what we're going to do is I actually found the trigger bar spring. It had fallen out while I was testing it. So we're going to reinstall that and then see where we're at from there. Where the first shot it fired didn't seem right, so we're going to investigate a little bit and just see if there's something else wrong here. I'm not sure. I could be wrong. It could just work straight away. Now, I'm kind of glad I did find it because it is a Garda item, slightly upgraded item. So what we need to do is we need to get this spring back in place. Now, for it to have fallen out would have meant that it's gone sort of past this little pin. Now, this little pin that's in here pokes out slightly, and what it does is it just retains that spring in place, so you can then attach it to the trigger bar. Now, if it's come out once, the likelihood is it's going to come out again. So we're going to have to look at that and figure out what's going on here. Either some wear, maybe we need to replace this front section. I don't know just yet. But either way, we're going to have this out and see what's going on with it. And I've just got to change this trigger. It's just... no, it's not. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it, but it's just not me. So first things first then, we're going to undo the screw in the top here, take down the takedown lever, which does need sorting out because it is installed backwards. It needs to be installed the other way around, and it won't last long. This is a stock TM takedown lever. Now, when the slide comes forwards, all of the force is on that. Now, you've got heavy slide with a heavy recoil spring. I'll show you the upper shortly. But yeah, that's going to do some damage. So we're going to need to change this at some point. I haven't got a steel one to hand, but I'm going to order one so we can do that. So get that screw out first. Now that screw's loose, which, okay, it's not a good sign. It's actually not coming out either, which probably means the thread in this is knackered, which again, not a good sign. Right, well that's not coming out, so let's get the takedown lever out first. So we'll push that spring down there, and we can push the takedown lever out one side. So how this is supposed to be installed, this focus is, it was actually installed this way around. Now it should be installed the other way around so that it has this chamfer here, so it drops down out of the way, then pops back up and locks into this part here, and that holds the system in place. So we need to correct that, but we need to get this sort of front chassis out first. So we need to punch this trigger, trigger pin out. Right, that's actually needs to come out the other side because the serration's on the other side. There's the serration that side, so that can come out. Now we should be able to lift this out. Yep. There we go. Okay. So that screw. Okay, so the screw is actually it's a machine screw. So this, as a TM, should have a normal self-tapping screw here, but notice that it is cracked. So we obviously now need to sort this out. So this trigger has definitely got to go. Now to take that out, we are going to take the hammer unit out as well here. There's our pin. There was no rear screw, which again is not a good sign. We should be able to pull this out now. Let's just inspect everything else we've got in here at the moment. So we've got our very wonky valve locker spring. Okay, the valve locker is not in good shape actually. That's had a bit of, you can see on here, there's a lot of file marks on the back of here and on the front. It's quite misshapen in here as well, which is not great. There's a substantial flat edge on the top of this as well. All showing a lot of wear, but also this has been worked quite a lot, which, I mean, I would suspect this is almost certainly a stainless steel sort of replacement. This has been modified to work, which is the stock TM one, which probably is not going to work very well with that. However, in the box, I did have these parts, which does appear to be the stainless steel valve locker for this set and the correct spring for it. Now, why it wasn't, we've actually got the original screw as well by the looks of things for the front chassis. So why this wasn't used, I don't know. You would assume the reason why it wasn't used is because it didn't work very well, which is why they've gone with the stock one. Well, it worked once. I think I'm going to reinstall it and see how we go. Because at the end of the day, we don't know what's going on with it. It might be great. It might not be so good. But that's really loose in there, which is not good for this working. So we've got our, what appears to be a Garda trigger bar here as well, which has had some work as well. And it's been flattened off at the top there, which again is not a great sign. Now, I might as well go into what we've got here. As I said, this is what I assumed was just a Garda slide and outer barrel. Actually turns out to be a full Garda upper. So this is a Garda steel slide, Garda steel outer barrel, Garda enhanced hop unit, Garda barrel, Garda hop rubber, Garda hop arm, Garda recoil guide rod, Garda flat recoil spring, which is my preferred one to use with these, with a Garda housing, so blowback unit, and a Garda nozzle, which I would also assume has a Garda nozzle return spring. Yeah, seems like it could be. So this is a full Garda upper here, so we've done pretty well out of this, even though it's obviously got its issues. So a good chunk of money in this top slide on its own. So anyway, we want to change this and get this awful trigger gone. So what we're going to need to do is get ourselves a replacement trigger. I've got a few in my spares box, nothing fancy, just something that's probably stock TM will do the job. So we're going to get one out and then we'll get that installed. Okay, so we've got ourselves a nice stock trigger here. So this will be fine for what we want. So what we need to now do is get these pins out. I would assume that this is the serrated side. So I assume it's going to push out this way. Yep. That's come straight out. Yep, there's your serrated side. Okay, so now we want to install this. I'm just going to have a quick look and see if I've got a pin for it. Now, the hole on this is quite enlarged, which I don't remember in the Garda ones having this enlarged hole. I'll show you what I mean. I'll get a stock one. So this is a later spec Garda one. You can tell this is a Garda one because it has this dimple through the middle, which is the reinforcement. And notice the size of hole here is much, much smaller. This one actually says Garda embossed in the front here as well, but that's much, much smaller there. Now, it could be that this trigger bar came with the trigger. Now, under normal circumstances, I don't like to mix and match. I'd rather just use the same parts, but looking at the ends of this, they are quite different. So if we look at the end here where the curve is, notice how much further forwards that is. So I think this goes with that trigger. So I think we're going to try the Garda one. I have got a stock one, which we could use. Again, I don't have a lot of luck with these Garda ones, which is why I haven't got this inner build at the moment. Maybe I'll just use this instead. It's a little dirty, but I think it might do the job. Yeah, this looks a lot better. Much better condition anyway. It's a steel one, which is good, as is the Garda. I think I'm going to go with this one. We'll see how we go. And worst case scenario, we can always fit the Garda one if we need to. So I don't think I'm going to bother swapping these triggers over. I don't see any need. I think this is a stock TM one anyway. It looks like the same kind of plastic. So right, so we're going to get this back together now. So we need to install the valve knocker spring, which was very, very twisted up, which is not great. So I'm going to try and straighten that out. So that's fine. We're going to pop that back into place. Hopefully this will do the trick and work. So that can go in there for now. We're going to get this back in its home so the spring doesn't come out. Now again, there was no rear screw, which let me just check. Actually, there is a hole for it. The hole is really enlarged. So even if I put a screw in that, it's going to do nothing. So we're just going to have to run with no rear screw. Anyway, we're going to put the rear pin back in. There we go. So that's now in. Now let's just check out that pin. That's the pin which holds the trigger bar spring. Okay, so the pin looks good on this. I don't see any issues. It's a little bit shiny, but no major issues. If we look in here, Hopefully you guys, if I get out in the light, you can see it. So in here, it's very pitted. This looks to me like someone forgot to install the spring and then levered all of this out to try and get the spring in. And what's actually happened is the spring has then popped out because there's extra room here, because there shouldn't be any extra room. What I'll do is, the reason why it's going to have popped out is there's a single ring loop on this. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to bend another one out and then make it twice as deep. So then that way it shouldn't pop out. At least that will stop it coming out now. Fingers crossed. So anyway, we can now reinstall this chassis unit. So that will go in there. Yeah, I think that's going to work fine. That should stop that coming over that now. Right, so I'm going to use the original screw. All right, so I'm going to install that in there. Notice I've got the trigger bar spring in here already. There we go, that's gone in. Yeah, I think that should hold in there nicely now, so that's good. So now what we'll do is, before I put the screw in, I'm going to install the slide catch and its associated spring. And that goes alongside the trigger. You have to make sure you keep the spring in place as well, because if you don't, then it won't work correctly. There we go. And then I want to push the pin through. Okay, that's in nicely. I can now install that front screw, which we'll see how well that works. Nope, that's doing not a lot, so that's a bit of a waste of time. And then we're going to reinstall our takedown lever, which we're going to put the correct way around, which was the chamfer facing towards the front of the pistol. So that in there, I'll push that spring down. Someone has bent this spring, which is a common tactic to sort of get it to give more tension. It's fine. I don't need to bend it back. It will still work fine. It does mean that engaging your safety is a bit harder, but I don't use them anyway. So there we go. That's all installed now. So that's all correct. We now just need to loop this trigger bar spring over the trigger bar. There we go, that's on now. So that's all hooked in place. Now, the trigger's not moving. That's probably because the safety's on. Yeah, safety is on, so let's move that forwards. There we go. Okay, that's dropping fine. Push that down. Yeah, that works. The valve knocker is out still. It should now reset back in when I press the valve locker down, which it does. So that's all working okay. That valve locker doesn't want to go down all the way though, which is not a great sign. It's probably because that spring is mullered. So I might need to change that spring. Anyway, so that's the lower back together as it should be. That should hold that spring in place and that shouldn't come out now. That's round the correct way. We've got the original screw in the front housing, but it's not really doing anything, so we're not going to worry about that too much. Let's reinstall the slide. That all seems to be working okay. Okay, that seems good. The trigger sits back as it should do. Oh, that's reset itself. Okay. That's a bit weird. We'll have to look at that. Well, let's just make sure it's all working okay. We'll make sure this van mag is gassed. Right. There we go. Okay. So it's not cycling enough to lock back at the moment, which I mean, it's a tough spring in these. The Garda flat spring is really, really tough, but it isn't locking back. Let's try a different mag. So this is a Garda casing. Annoyingly, the Garda casing that I've got here doesn't have the markings on, but this is a 22 housing, which is for 40 caliber, not 9mm. So looking at this one appears to be a WE because it's got the flat router as well. I have the flat router on this one as well, so I could try a VFC one, see if that helps, but we'll try it, see how it goes. So that's in okay. Well, that's kicking a lot harder, but still not locking back. But actually, the reason why it's not locking back is that that's not engaging up. So I'm not quite sure why that's not engaging up at all. Let's try it again. Yeah, so it's not pushing up enough, really. That's probably something to do with the magazine. Now, is that a mag fault? That seems all right. Let's see how it works with this one. This is the WE one it had before. That's gone up okay. That seems to be working okay. Okay, so it's mag related then. That's why that catch isn't working. But for whatever reason, it cycles a lot better with this mag in. Now, it has got an aftermarket valve in this one, whereas this is a stock WE one. So, again, this isn't ideal because we've got a curved seat nozzle here, whereas the magazine itself is a flat WE KJ Works style. It's working, but not cycling far enough back to lock that back, which is a shame. Right, well, I don't really want to mess with that too much just for the sake of a magazine, so I'm not going to worry about that for the moment. But it is working at the moment, just not cycling that far back. So it probably wouldn't be loading any BBs there. Now, that could be for a couple of reasons. The main reason is most likely going to be the kind of recoil spring we're running here, because it's a very strong flat spring. Now, someone has installed a buffer here, which I wouldn't have generally installed a buffer at that point. I would have put it down here, but I don't think that's going to make a huge difference to what's happening. So, but what this is to do is to just short stroke it slightly. The problem with that is going to add extra tension. So I think I'm going to have that out. So this has got two buffers in it actually. So we're going to get rid of both of those because I think that's a bit excessive. We're going to put that back in. Run it in tight. So we've not got as much spring tension now. Yeah, that's well, it comes back nicer. Let's put some gas in that mag. Yeah, so it's still not cycling fully back. Now, again, it's probably because we've not got a great seal on that mag. Right, I've got a VFC mag here, which the VFC does have the curved seat. It's worth noting as well, not all VFC mags are going to work in a TM, but this one I believe should. So we'll try it. It locks in okay. This is an extended mag, but seems to be working okay. No, so still not locking back. So we've got some kind of efficiency issue here because we should still be getting a lock back. We're either suffering with mega cooldown in the nozzle and it's just not getting a good seal. It might be it just doesn't have a good seal. It might be something else. It's causing extra friction. You can see the top of the barrel is a bit shiny, which is kind of normal for these, but it could be that that's not dropping down out of the way as far as it needs to. So we might have to do a bit of modification. You can see there's a mark on the top of the slide, on the top of the barrel here actually, which is probably from that front sight screw. So we might have to just take the edge off of that, because that will add extra friction as it comes back. Seems to cycle okay though. That trigger's really annoying. Well, let's have a look at this top slide then and see what we've got. So we need to remove the recoil spring. Now again, this is one of the Garda flat springs, which what I mean by a flat spring is hopefully you can see that it is not a standard coil. It is a flat spring, which is basically what they use in real steel. So I really like those anyway because they give real snappy blowback. The downside is they're not very gas efficient. So, you know, I don't really skirmish mine, so it doesn't bother me. So we're going to have that out. Now, this is suffering with the classic Garda syndrome on this. What that is that this is the Garda enhanced hop unit, which, you know, is pretty much the same as a TM1 in my opinion. I don't think there are a lot of difference. Get this one apart. But hopefully you can see on here what I mean by Garda syndrome is notice the little nub here, which helps drop the barrel, is really worn. Now, what you've got to remember what's happening here is this is a steel outer barrel going on to an aluminium part. So it is going to wear so fast, and that has almost gone halfway through that pin. So what I usually do is drill these out and replace them with a machine screw and cut the head off. So you've got steel on steel. So I think I'll be doing that on this one. But it is a genuine Garda one. It's got the Garda black barrel. So this is all genuine Garda stuff. Probably a Garda hop rubber, but who knows. We can see the front sight screw is poking out quite a lot, so we're going to do something about that. We'll file that down and make sure that's sitting correctly. The inside of the slide looks pretty good though. Now I have got an earlier gen steel slide, which I'll tell you what, let me take it off and we'll compare the two. So this is my very lovely Gen 2, wearing one of the early Garda steel slides. I've re-blacked this one myself. Must admit, I do like this pistol. So we'll take down, get that slide off. There's my barrel, which again, I've refinished this barrel. Now, hopefully you can see what I've done here with this one. Now, first of all, I've bent this. Hopefully I can get it to focus. I've bent this in slightly here. And the reason why I've done that is because if the pin does wear down, it starts getting stuck underneath it. On the newer ones, they've added a bit more thickness, so it's not such a problem, but I probably will do the same on that one. But you can see here as well, I've replaced that little nub with a machine screw. So I've drilled it out, put a machine screw in, Loctite in place, and then cut the head off. So that is now steel riding on steel. So that's going to last a lot longer and won't wear out super fast. So I've also done the barrel drop mod here, which is something that if you know your Glocks, you've probably read about, where you open out this channel. Whereas if we look at the stock one, there isn't such a deep insert. Sorry, I realise you probably haven't seen that. So I've opened out this channel in here, whereas if you look at the stock one, it's not as much. That helps the barrel drop down a lot further out of the way, so you don't get this rubbing on the top. You can see mine's got a little bit, but not a lot, whereas this one has got quite a lot. So we might do that on this one. Notice the early style barrels markings. So we've got the Glock AT 9x19 with the rifling mark on the top, whereas on this one, the newer type, it just says 9x19, and it has some markings on the side here, whereas the early type ones have the much nicer markings. This is definitely, I would say, probably like a 2023 or 2021. So that's that. We've got our barrel from my one. And here's our top slides. Now, differences at the moment don't look massive, but I would say the cuts in this one are a lot deeper. So they've done some more scalloping in here. They're a lot deeper on this one to try and cut the weight down. The cutouts on the inside of here are a lot deeper than this one. So this one carries a lot more weight than this one does. Yeah, actually it's quite a lot deeper, surprisingly so. If we look in there, let me see if I can show you. So if you look from here, this edge into there, that's how they've machined out the inside of the slide to cut some weight. If we look on this one, that step is a lot deeper. So they've machined a lot more out here to try and cut down the weight. Which obviously the less weight you've got, the less, force is required to push the slide back, in which case the more efficient it will be. And weight-wise, yeah, this one's definitely, I wouldn't say considerably heavier, but a lot heavier. You can also see the front is different. This one has that sort of mimicking the factory one, whereas this one has that flat front. So again, cutting down on the weight. So anyway, enough about that. Let's look at our blowback unit then. Now, the blowback unit I've got in this one, I say, is a Guns Modify. The nozzle spring's not up to much actually on this one. I do need to replace it at some point, but it does the job. This one has a Garda one in, I believe, and probably a Garda piston head, which looks like it's moving around a bit, so it's probably sealing okay. So we're going to take that screw out, and we'll have a look at the blowback unit and see what we've got, see if there's anything obvious that we can improve upon. Now, to take the blowback unit out on any Glock, it's rear sight screw and rear sight will pop out. So this is, I actually thought they were going to have done away with this, but this is something that this one has as well. This rear sight is fixed in place in a track like the real steel one, so you can slide it side to side to adjust. Now, I thought they'd done away with this, which I actually much prefer this design to the new style ones. But actually, what they have done is they've done away with that. They've kept it. And actually, what happens is the blowout unit screws directly into the top of the slide. So if I lift this out, you'll see you've got a lug in the top of the slide here with a thread in it. So you then screw directly into that. Now, this one does have a track in the top here, which has been machined out, which my one doesn't have. Also, these scallops on the side here are definitely a lot deeper than the ones in this other one. So for a steel slide, that's reasonably light. I wouldn't say it's as light as an alloy slide, obviously, but considering that steel, that's reasonably light. So it looks like a Garda return spring, which looks fine. Definitely looks like a Garda nozzle. Very little use on this Garda nozzle, that's for sure. All looks stock though, all looks in good condition. That looks fine. And we've got our piston head. Now, the piston head on the stock TM does move around a little bit. I prefer to make sure they're a bit tighter than that, because what can happen is it can affect your air seal. So the gas can get past where it screws in and then come out here. So it affects your nozzle seal. So I'm going to have that screw's loose. That is not going to be helping at all. So that is still loose in there, but I'm going to have that out. And I'm just going to pack that so that sits a bit better. What I usually do to pack these out is either a few shims, if I've got the right size, or alternatively I use an O-ring in there just to seal it, and that helps seal that in nicely. So I've got this little O-ring set here, which is invaluable for doing any repairs. Yeah, that's going to fit in there really tight. That's also going to mean that screw is going to be really tight going through that, which is good. So let's put this back in place. But this is definitely a Garda blowback unit because it's considerably lighter than the TM one. But someone has done a lot of work on this, and you can see on here all the exposed metal. They've filed all this down, which sometimes it's necessary if you're using factory parts. And this is what I was saying, and you've seen me say before. If you're using factory parts with aftermarket parts, then probably not going to work very well together. So, try to stick with the same brand. Now that feels like it's a good fit and not moving around. Let's just try now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to block off this port and I'm going to blow into the end of the nozzle. That'll give me an idea as to how much air leak I've got. A very slight amount, which is good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly just oil this. Don't need to go mad, just a drop on it. And that'll give it a good seal. Now, some people will tell me that, and tell you that you shouldn't do this because that oil will now end up on your hot rubber, and you're probably right. But at the moment, I'm just looking for efficiency to see if this is going to work correctly together. If it doesn't, then I'm going to go down other routes. So that's going to go back in there. That's moving nicely. Put our return spring back in place. Yeah, it's a very new housing this. It's had very little use, other than someone hacking away with a file, of course. Yeah, I mean, it's been clipping there potentially, but I think they've just filed that off. Oh well. Anyway, so we've got that back in place there. I might do the barrel drop mod now, just so I can make sure that barrel is dropping down correctly. Yeah, that is a Garda black barrel. They think is usually 603s, so it's a reasonably tight bore. Looks like it's a stock one, hasn't been opened though, which is good. So that really does need drilling out and putting a machine screw in. So I think I'm going to do that as well while we're here. But I'm just going to quickly modify this. So I'm going to show you where I'm going to file. So basically I'm going to use a curved file. So flat one side, curved on this side. I'm going to go into this groove in here with the flat edge against that part there and the curve in there. And I'm going to open up that into a bit more of a curve. So I'll pause the video and I'll come back to you in a minute. Hey guys, we're back. So there's our modified cut I've made there. I've just extended this out slightly, which just helps the barrel drop all the way down. So essentially what happens is your barrel is sitting in here like this, and this is its standard position. And when the slide comes back, the barrel drops, and that just allows the barrel to drop a lot further, so it comes out of the way. It will obviously be limited by how far it can come down with the top of the hop unit, but I have filed off the top of the hop units before to give more clearance. But you should see as well when we install this again that it will give a lot more clearance for the drop. So you can see here we've got that's going all the way up against that little notch there, whereas before it sat slightly proud. That also means that this will drop all the way in as well. So we're now going to sort this out. Now, this can be a bit of a pig because we need to file this off to start off with, and then we're going to drill it out and put a machine screw in there. So I'm going to need to drill it out, tap it, put a machine screw in, cut the top off, and file it smooth. And I'll Loctite it in there as well. Okay, can you see on here? There's a little nub that pokes out the side. Now, this is lightweight aluminium that Garda use, which is fantastic for keeping it light, but it's very soft. And that little nub that pokes out there is half worn away. You can see the shininess on it. So half of that has worn away here. So that is no good. That's not got a lot of life left in it. Also, that's not helping the barrel ride up into position correctly. So we need to deal with that. So we're going to get rid of that, replace it with a machine screw, and that will make this run a lot better. So I'll file it off and I'll show you where I'm at, and then I'll drill it out and show you what we do from there. So I'll pause it from here, we'll come back to you. Okay, so here's my little pot of screws, machine screws that I use for this kind of stuff. I'm not sure I've got one that's small enough at the moment. I think it's this one I use. Okay. Right. So we're M3.5. So I've got a M3 drill. I'm probably going to go over 2.5, and then what I need to do is tap it out to 3.5. which I think is this one here. I've used a few times. So just to check that that's correct, because it could be wrong, I'm just going to get that up, offer that up against the thread on this. No, it's slightly out, it doesn't match. So, see if I've got the right one that fits it this time. Maybe I used a slightly smaller screw last time, I can't remember. That's way too small. What's that one? That looks way too small as well. Yep. That's definitely way too large. What's that one there? That is... M3.5. What's that? M3.5 by 0.6. Okay. That's a slightly different thread. Okay. So I've got nothing that's exact at the moment. That's too large. Right, I'm going to have to look through all of my taps and see if I've got something that fits it. So I'm going to pause you guys now and go hunting for the right one. So that does match up perfectly for this. So that is the correct tap for this. So that's perfect. So I now need an M2 drill to be able to drill that hole out. And I'm going to use my tap wrench here so I can tap that out. Right guys, so here we go. I've filed that down now, so it's almost at the housing. And initially I'm going to use a little hand drill, just so I can get it started so it's marked out in the middle. Because as soon as I go on to use a power drill, it's going to wander all over the place and I'll lose exactly where the centre is, and that'll be no good. Okay guys, so we look at this now. You can see I've drilled all the way through there, which has gone through into where the the nozzle nub would go. We obviously need to clean all that out. And we also don't want the screw to go all the way into there because it's obviously going to stop the nozzle going any further in. But what we are going to do is we need to tap in there. So we need to drill all the way through so we can get the tap to make a clean thread all the way through. So for now, I'm going to disassemble this hop unit. You can see where the drill has come out the other side now. On there, we've got a hole in here. You can see the hole through there at the moment. There it is. So we obviously don't want the screw to come all the way through there because it's going to stop the nozzle pickup going all the way forwards. But we need to be able to go all the way through here so we can tap all the way through. So I'm going to get my tap. I'm going to start tapping this, threading this hole out. So now we can wind this machine screw into place. We obviously don't want to go too far in. We want it to go up to that point there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to Loctite in position, cut that off, and just file the thread off a little bit so it's in there nice and tight. And that will provide a nice steel surface for the steel to barrel to ride on. So I'm going to lock that in place now. I'll cut it off and I'll show you the end result in a moment. Okay guys, so I've now cut that off. I've filed it down a good amount. It's poking out quite a lot more than it needs to be, but I've just done that on purpose so I can make sure it's definitely in the right place. So I'm going to reintroduce it to our barrel. Pop that back in. Okay, you can see what's happening now. That is riding on a steel pin. Now notice it's a little bit tight going up and over. It's because we need to just file a little bit off to make sure it runs smoothly. But what we're really interested in is the depth now. You can see it's poking out a lot more than we need to. So we need to figure out how much we need to take off. I'm probably going to take 2 threads worth off of that. Just file it down till it's about smooth. I don't think I'm going to need to bend the outer barrel in at all like my other one. I think this one's got more material there, so it should be fine. So yeah, I'm just going to take 2 threads off that, and then we'll clean it up and see where we're at. Okay guys, so we're all done. So you can see the barrel's back in place now, and you can see this metal pin is now riding nicely in its slot, and that is steel on steel, causing no problems. It's also nice and flush with that. So that will now future-proof that, and that shouldn't cause us any issues. We've also done the barrel drop mod, so that will allow the barrel drop as low as it can. So let's pop the slide back together, see if we have any change. Again, I'm not expecting massive differences with these fixes, but, you know, it might make a little bit of a difference, which is, you know, what we're hoping for. So let's put that on. All right, let's see what we've got. Okay, so we're still not getting really consistent lockbacks. So there's still definitely some efficiency issues going on there. So something we need to look at. But it definitely seems to run a lot nicer. The outer barrel is definitely dropping down a lot lower than it did before. So we're probably going to get no more scoring on the top here. You can see if I hold this back how much that outer barrel drops down now, which it didn't before. And we can help it along a little bit with Guns Modified do a dropper spring, which just helps drop the barrel down slightly. So they're really helpful for that kind of thing. I've used them on a few of my other builds, but that seems to drop really nicely now. It's coming nicely out of the way. Yeah, still not locking back completely, so we're still not getting a full slide back here. I mean, it's a strong spring. I'd be tempted to try and improve the nozzle seal. So I think that's going to be my next port of call. I might change the piston head for a O-ring type, which will normally give a much better seal, which will then obviously drive the slide back with a lot more force, meaning that we'll get a lock back. That recoil spring, I would say, is not... mine is quite a bit weaker. So I'll tell you what, we'll try my recoil spring in here. The leaf springs are quite tough, so we'll try mine in that. Still not getting a lock back, so it's definitely nothing to do with the spring. I would say spring strength. Yeah, it's similar actually, so I wouldn't have said there's a lot in it. So it's definitely something else at play here. But for now, we seem to have done our fix, or the fixes we need to. We've got that nicer... That's better. Got that nicer trigger in there. However, that trigger skipping forwards is probably the hammer housing is worn and it's not locking it all the way back. So I'm going to have a look at that. I might change over to the Garda trigger bar, see if that helps it at all. But for now, it's working at least, which it wasn't doing before. I should have really showed what it was doing before, but it just was not functioning at all, and I couldn't make it run because the trigger spring was missing. So there we go, guys. Another build. What do you think we should do with it? We've got it sort of semi-running okay now. We've done a couple of future-proofing fixes. We've also got the correct trigger in there now, which is nice. It functions at least. You know, we are getting lockbacks on occasion, which is working okay now. I really wish that trigger would lock back as it should do. No. Okay, that's going to really annoy me. I'm going to have to fix that. But, you know, so we've got it kind of running okay now. What do you think you'd like to see with it? Shall I do another, you know, Gen 2 lower? Do something along those lines? Or should I go with something a bit more custom? I'm probably going to order a Garda lower frame for it because they're not very expensive. So that will obviously give me something else. But I mean, maybe I'll go with a different gen lower. Maybe I'll go with Gen 4, which wouldn't match the slide because it would normally say Gen 4 on it. But what do you guys think? You let me know. What do you want me to see me do with this? Do you want to keep it stock? Just a normal Gen 3? Shall I go for, you know, a different frame and do some modifications with the frame? There are a few other bits and pieces I need to do to this, but you've seen a few of the fixes for now. So, yeah, let me know. And any comments, any questions, fire them away in the comments. Any questions about what I've done so far or recommendations or what has gone into this build so far, let me know. If you guys want to see me go a bit more in depth with that fix for the pin on the hop unit, I've gone into quite a lot of detail there, so I don't think I need to, but if you guys want a bit more, do let me know and I can do another video if need be. Anyway guys, catch you in the next one.